To Realize Gallery in downtown Adams, Massachusetts, in western Massachusetts, proximal to Massamoka and Jacob's Pillow and the Clark Art Museum and all these other terrific venues. Thank you to gallerist Bill Riley for remodeling this beautiful space and hosting the talk and this exhibition at Brandon Grabby. Put my glasses on now. Also thanks to Chris DeSanti for digitally recording this evening. Samples of Chris's fine work can be seen on Instagram at DeSant Productions. Chris is normally in the music world, producing music videos for some exciting up-and-coming artists, but he's here with us tonight. Thank you, Chris. Now, how to introduce 40 years of work in 3 minutes. I'm not sure, but I'll give it my best shot. By way of introduction or possibly reintroduction, Brandon Grabby, originally from New Orleans, Louisiana, is an artist whose focus is experimental printmaking and sculpture. She's been at the forefront of creating experimental techniques in printmaking and in the creation of very large-scale monoprints. Her print installation, Ephemera, River with Flowers, is perhaps the largest monoprint ever made by a single artist, measuring 10.5 feet high by 32 feet long. Incidentally, this work, of which the narrative involves surrounding water, happened to be on exhibit at the New Orleans Museum of Art in 2005 when Hurricane Katrina struck. Fortunately, the museum survived, as did Brandon's work, which was subsequently purchased by and moved to its permanent home, the Frederick R. Wiseman Art Foundation in Malibu, California. Ms. Grabby holds a BFA in printmaking and sculpture. Among her many accolades, she has received awards from the Pollock Krasner, Gottlieb, and Joan Mitchell Foundations, respectively. Her own work is in many public and private collections. To name only a few: the New Orleans Museum of Art, Frederick R. Wiseman Art Foundation, Boonfellow Corporation in New Orleans, Rapidash Records in New Orleans, and Melodica Music in Alameda, California. Let's see. Her most recent exhibitions include a solo exhibit of 50 works at the Albany Museum of Art in Georgia, the Brevard Museum of Art in Florida, the Louisiana Arts and Science Museum, the Lancaster Museum in California, the New Orleans Museum of Art, the Frederick R. Wiseman Art Foundation in Malibu, California, and the Contemporary Art Center in New Orleans, Louisiana. As if her own work as an artist wasn't quite enough, Ms. Grabby has also curated many print and drawing exhibitions nationally and has been a juror for both Rhode Island and Connecticut to decide their state grant awards in prints and drawings. She has taught printmaking for over 25 years at many venues, including Tulane University, as a guest artist at the Cape Cod Museum, and led workshops for many years at the Contemporary Artists Center, where she was both gallery director and curator. But there's more. Ms. Grabby is also the owner and master printmaker at Gravity Press Experimental Print Shop in North Adams, Massachusetts. Within the brick walls and tall glass windows of this highly specialized fine art printmaking shop, the concentration is on creating unique prints using the 8 specially built platen presses including the 5-foot by 11-foot platen press, affectionately nicknamed the Monster. Her works as producer, master printmaker at Gravity Press reside in the permanent collections of rare book libraries and museums across Europe and in the United States, perhaps most notably in the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C., and the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York City. Please join me in welcoming this accomplished sculptor, artist, and friend, Brandon Graven.
Wow. Thank you all so much for coming and spending time with me here. I hope we'll all get what we want out of this.
Me too, yeah.
I know. Well, it's interesting because I think a lot about time lately. A lot of my works take a lot of time to make. The work that's up here in this exhibition spans a couple of decades. The piece in the front window is actually from 1998. This particular piece is very recent, and truthfully, these sculptures that span bisect the center are also very new, though some of them have been in the works for many, many years. So, thinking about time and thinking about how we spend it, how when you first maybe encounter a piece, the reaction is possibly quick, and what you see and think about it initially may be something that's very different after you've spent time with it. I know that, like, when you're doing, for example, nature photography, it takes a while for the light to go. I know that in my own printmaking process, because they're very experimental, there's a lot of work that gets thrown away and by the time I get a good piece. It's just how it is. They go, I take a lot of chances. I like the ink to be inky. Like, I want them to be, I want the work to be made out of, to be conceptually, from beginning to end, like what it's made out of, everything to be part of what the piece means, what the piece is about. These pieces, for example, are, they're made on a paper that's made out of recycled clothing. They go through the press, and they're in the press for about 8 hours while these chemical reactions happen and allow the paper to mold itself over the objects that I've built up, mainly cast silicon objects and different things. And the inks are all handmade inks. They're made out of different micas and metals. I used to be a bronze caster a long, long time ago, and now turns out my prints are made out of all kinds of metal, and my sculptures are made out of all kinds of paper. Anyway, but these, for example, have a huge amount of micas and aluminums and different bone things and all kinds of different materials made in the inks. And then they have a lot of resins and transparent base. And so all these things happen inside the press and sit in there for a really long time, and then open them out, and you just hope they come out good. or that at least if they don't come out how you're expecting them and how you want them to, that you can alter them and play around with them, ideally. So this piece is called Mother Aerial View. like much of my work, there is a sort of micro and macro situation. So I'm fooling around with time and also with space in these pieces. So, for example, while in some cases it looks like you may be like doing an aerial view, you're also very much rewarded when you come in close. Like there's a lot of action when you do come in. So there's both of those sorts of things which are very important. Like if, just like trying to reward you guys for spending time with me today, I want you to, if you do walk up close to any of these pieces, I want you to find some, like to get a reward of something revealed to you that you didn't see from farther away. Ideally, something was evocative or attractive enough to make you want to engage further, but, or possibly, really dangerous. Anyway.
Or get punished.
Exactly. One of the things about a lot of these pieces is that they're very interactive. Now, I do realize that they are that they're not alive, because you don't have to feed them or clip their nails or anything. Are these flashing for anybody?
Show it from the side too, an angle from the side. It might light up a little bit differently from a side angle as well. Yeah.
So they are of course, everything is light interactive and changes with the light in a room or anything, but these are, you can really make a big change in them by how they're lit. This piece also, is anything happening for anybody?
You get up close, you can see it.
I know, yeah. So, well, I'll show y'all where the flashlight is. So these sculptures are cast off of crepe myrtle trees that were felled during Hurricane Katrina.
What's the material?
It's made out of abaca, which is a component that's used in a lot of fine art paper. It's a really long, really strong fibrous material, much like banana or hemp. It's crazy strong. So I'm able to get both structure as well as surface when I'm building these pieces. So the abaca is normally, when you purchase it in linters, it's sort of soaked and torn up and then chewed up in a blender and made into paper pulp. And that's what people traditionally would then lay out to make paper with. I take the linters and tear them apart and soak those in about the size of my thumb and then place them over the stainless steel structure. So within these pieces, there is a stainless steel armature. So they are really archival and really inert. You can see in some cases some of the little laid lines from the linters with them. So every once in a while you get little patterns, like I know in the Taruth piece that's in the center there, there's quite a few little areas where you can see these little strange lines in the surface. And those are the laid patterns from those linters. So it's made out of abaca, and then the stainless steel and the crystal orbs. When there's no light on in the room, these orbs just hold light, which is also true of the other ones, which is, I love that the light is interactive with the pieces. Like, of course it is, but that they can really engage and hold the light is very important. During this COVID situation that we're all thankfully and very gratefully surviving, at least our group in here, I started making little bitty sculptures. I think of them as like little bursts of knowledge, like little gifts for learning stuff. I think it just was good. Plus, it's so wonderful to make something and finish it really quickly, which is a wonderful feature of size. Scale is one thing, but size is very helpful to be able to knock them out and have that satisfaction. So these small pieces are also abaca, the same material, the hand-painted vellum, which is in many of these pieces, which allows me to have a lot of different sorts of color, and it's also totally light, fast, versus the kind that you just purchase. It really is very fugitive color. These ficus leaves in there are actual real ficus leaves that I grow in my loft, and they're polymerized so they remain flexible. Now y'all aren't supposed to touch this, but anyway, they remain flexible, and so they're like willow trees. A lot of these pieces are strong because they are a little bit flexible, like you know, being flexible and resilient is part of longevity and strength. Getting back to our time situation. So anyway, so these small bursts of knowledge have been very, very, very satisfying. This particular piece is called Wish number 238. It's also cast from a crepe myrtle tree that was felled during Hurricane Katrina. It's got a stainless steel armature and then structured with some acrylic bars. These are super fun to make also.
Do you have to break the tree to get the sculpture off?
No, in fact, I wax. The crepe myrtle trees, for those of you who are not from New Orleans, are these beautiful barkless trees. So truthfully, they kind of look like athletes that bloom. And they're a kind of a barkless tree. I then wax them because wax is wonderful, and so then the abaca, which is water-based, then resists and comes right off. So, and y'all again can't touch these, but they're a little bit flexible though, quite sturdy, and so I'm able to just pull them right out. During the big piece that David had mentioned earlier, the 10.5 by 32-foot piece that was at the New Orleans Museum of Art when Hurricane Katrina struck. It was so big that I felt a need to build a sculpture to go into the front of it, because it was so big that you couldn't really go up to it as the viewer. It was about the length of this gallery, and 32 feet, just about exactly, I think 32. And it just was too formidable. So I used a lot of my driftwood from both New Orleans as well as the Hoosick River up here, and polychromed it to be copacetic with the sculpture, and then with the large-scale print, and we put a sort of sandbar on the museum floor, and then put the polychromed sticks to it. So then it sold, which, I mean, what are the chances of that? So, I mean, I truthfully thought I would forever, have it. So all my sticks, my entire stick collection was gone. So after that, I figured out how to cast them. So I still have all of the sticks. And so many of these are, in fact, the same stick, like that little tiny stick, which is in this piece called Today, which is one of the brand new pieces and absolutely one absolute favorite of mine. But this little stick is the same that's been used in many of the other. In fact, Orlando, it's actually the same stick. This is just a much more delicate version of it, and I didn't cast quite as much of it. I sort of just used the center of it. This little piece actually, which was just finished recently, was underway, as many of them are, for a long, long time. Sometimes I'll find I like something a little bit too early, and then I have to just put it away because, of course, I'm probably going to ruin it, and I need to be able to have that happen and be fine. So this particular piece was like this. So it's called Today because it seemed pertinent for something that could stick you in the eye. We hung it quite high, so it should be safe for everybody. But so the porcupine quills are actually collected from when I lived in Cameroon, Africa for about nearly 4 years, a long time ago. And the stainless steel pole that the steel pole that holds it up is covered with camwood, which is a product that when a young girl is going to get married in Cameroon, for about 2 weeks prior to that, all of her friends rub this red dust all over her body, which is, it's sort of like, it's a ground, kind of like a sandalwood type situation. In different regions, it's different colors of red. So, in fact, and since I walked around for 4 years, I went to a lot of different regions and collected it. You would buy it from children in the market in little balls so they would grind the wood and with water hold it, and anyway, it was miraculous. And so it came from sort of an orangey color to sort of more of a blood red. So you can see that the sort of darker red, and then it goes up to orange, which again is a subtlety, but anyway. So that was, the color of these things is also very, very important. So, and in this case, like when porcupines are alive, and I know I told a few people this, they have a natural antibiotic at the ends of their quills because they poke themselves all the time. So that's no longer the case here, so no poking. The piece in the far corner over there with the three kind of explosions on, that also has porcupine quills. That particular piece, those quills are vintage pink quills that, I'm not sure what the history is of them, but I've got quite a few and they're really beautiful. And I also, of course, have tested them in the sun, and they seem to be not fugitive, which is very important to me. I don't like to repair. I repair a lot of other people's work professionally, and I don't like to repair my work. I know that, paper has people that work on paper. There's a variety of those sorts of danger things for collectors, and I'm very conscientious about that. And I think it's just, you cannot be, and that's cool too, But I think it's just it's something I think that we should just be aware. It's like, I'm a girl, different like facts. And so, what do y'all want to know? Am I telling you what you want to know?
Brandon, I love the way the shadows coming off. It's just another dimension.
Thank you very much. It's wonderful. Part of what I love about the suspended pieces is that sort of shadowing effect. Like if we control the light and just space them exactly, it's miraculous. We've actually got some pretty cool pictures of, like even the little Today piece over there. It is fascinating, and it's a whole layer of what happens with three-dimensional objects versus two-dimensional. They have to, like it's an illusion. They have to do it all inside themselves, whereas these guys get to interact, and they challenge the space that you're in too, because they provoke you. You have to interact with them, and that's fascinating to me.
And they're inviting at the same time, and your theme of wonder in some of these pieces are just. I just love that topic. I heard Jane Goodall talking about a sense of wonder along with scientific facts. And that the combination of looking of those two ideas when looking at your piece. Because so often I hear reactions of people saying, sort of along the anthropomorphic lines, but it's just wonder is just so much more than just, there's a thing, we know that as a fact. There's just so much we don't know, and that sense of wonder that is in your works are just really, really always intriguing to me. I know. It's
I'm definitely trying to make that kind of an invitation to, and I'm taking elements, sort of abstracting, simplifying different elements and objects, and possibly making them so personal that they're universal, so simplified and so complicated that gives the viewer enough room to find themselves within it and to discover something else about the work.
When you put the pieces of abaca
Yeah.
along the spine there, what do you adhere it with and what do you cover it with? I know this one has sort of a soft white and
That's actually all, the color, except for the pink blush that I'm starting to use in some of these, all of that color, except for, of course, the vellum and the pink, all of the color of the abaca is natural to the abaca. I buy it from different regions and different parts of the world, and because it just comes like different colors. So it's hard to tell exactly here, but if you see it laid out, some of it's really pink, some of it's really whiter, some of it's a variety of different beige, and then obviously bleached ones of any of those colors would then give another layer. So what I do is within the pieces, and like I'm gonna come make everybody wiggle all around. But this way, see, with me walking around, there's no napping. Like for example, in this one, I think you can see a lot more of the different colors of the abaca. So the white, I try and use kind of at the tops to kind of highlight possibly more.
And what do you use? Is it just the wetness of the abaca, or do you use something else?
I do actually use a polymer emulsion. I apologize if I'm too close to anybody with the mask, so just let me know. I'm very vaccinated and all that stuff, so my apologies. But anyway, and I'm happy to put it back on if need be. Anyway, so in this particular piece, so there is a polymer emulsion that's used. Thank you. I'm sorry for taking so long with that. But so I use a polymer emulsion on the work, and the warm water of the abaca on my little thumbprint goes over, and then I use the polymer emulsion, which allows me to wash these, because they get dusty and all that kind of stuff. So it allows me to keep them clean. This particular piece, as noted in a few locations, was begun about 14 years ago and just was recently finished. It's called To Ruth and has to do with my mother, Ruth, who was about this tall and like one of the most powerful humans that you could ever encounter. She was just amazing on many, many levels and could eat a chicken to where a cat wouldn't want it. But anyway, she was very amazing. So this piece has to do with my relationship with my mother who raised me, and how complex and everything that was. And it was part of why it took me a very long time to make it. And also a friend of mine who they've moved, and so I'm very sad about, but my friend Andrea Barrett really liked these little red anodized wires over here, and so I got stuck because I had to keep those. And anyway, so now there are some little shells that make an entrance towards that. Sorry about my back over here. Okay, good.
To talk about that piece is part of a larger piece that you're working on.
Yes, yeah.
Can you describe how this piece relates to the larger piece?
I have no idea. Exactly. I don't exactly, I really actually don't exactly know. But the other piece is, there's another piece similar to this that's 20 feet across. And so my theory, what I know about them now is that the two will interact together. The video that Bill so thankfully has posted is a video of 5 of the different sculptures interacting together. I love the way the shadows and the shapes and all the changes of them interact together, and so that is part of what this particular piece will be with the other much larger one that's underway but was just impossible to get, and it was fun to showcase some of the smaller ones, but it would be the same. It would be sort of the same size relationship as Orlando to the Tarruth piece. Something along that lines. What's really remarkable is that the way these things are built, they weigh almost nothing. They're incredibly strong and really durable. So just as far as collectors, everyone who has purchased any of them seems to be really happy, and they don't seem to be troublesome in any way. But it's remarkable. This piece, I'd been working on it and hadn't moved it for a long, long time, and it weighs so much less than the one with the bursting glass over there. I was shocked. A lot of times they'll have lead so that they'll hang in a certain way. This particular piece, again with the pinky porcupine quills, and then these are aigrette feathers, also from a friend of mine in Louisiana. So, and then this one, and this particular one has a huge amount of lead in the bottom to get it to hang just a certain way, and then the outside structures on it in such a way.
Do you work on it while it's hanging?
Yes. I mean, sometimes I will lay them down to do certain activities, but most of it is they're hung. And like if there's heat or air conditioner, or instead of us all sitting down, if we were walking around, that's enough air current, because with all the little fibers on them and stuff, that's usually enough air current so that they continue to move around, and so they kind of interact with us, which I find fascinating, and it's fun and a little challenging to work with them while they're up.
You know what I really love about these so much is that they first of all, they feel like they just are, which to me is like the highest compliment. Like they just exist in this world, and they weren't made by anyone. They just are here because they need
Wow.
you. And like, I'll look at that, and it will remind me of the desert, and I'll think it's like some sort of desiccated flowering cactus or something that was called out of the desert. And then something like that over there that feels like it's an underwater, exotic creature that no one ever knew existed. So I don't know. That's how I respond to these. They just work so beautifully on so many different levels.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely open invitation to wonder. Just so well put.
Well, and I think that like absolutely all of those references are definitely what I'm gleaning from the world, and absolutely translating them, and not being particular, like it can be, a wheat germ and a octopus, and like without any criteria or anything particular. But agreed, I want them to be right. Francie had told me that some kids were in here and really enjoyed themselves with the work. And for me also, I feel like kids enjoying the work, it's a layer of honesty, that is very, very critical. And I do feel like that, I love that. And I feel like they have both. I feel like they look like they've been touched a billion jillion times, and also that they just originated. And I love that duality for sure.
I loved how you refer to them as explosions and bursts. I mean, that's what trees do every year when they, I mean, everything came from the Big Bang.
Sure.
That's your belief in science.
Yeah.
But it's such a great, word to use there too.
As they turn, I mean, they reveal themselves So it's like a changing cloud or a nudibranch swimming, how some of them have that very wave-type motion as they move. And as these move, the shadows and the curvature move like a somewhere between a cloud and a flame or a wing. Just the kinetic aspects of these under various lights is just terrific.
This one reminds me of a seahorse.
Absolutely, with all the ribbing in particular.
What was the armature that would be under this one? You know, like the other ones come from the tree, etc. This one seems like specific. Did you create an armature that did that?
This one was again cast over the stick, and then the ribbing and all of that has been just freeform with the stainless steel, building the armature, and I thought I was going to be done a lot
so that
sooner.
Came in the shape, that sort of vertical-like shape really came in the stainless steel armature process.
I began making the ribbing and possibly was looking a little bit too much at Soutine or Francis Bacon. But anyway, and then it just got larger and larger, and like many things, I just couldn't finish it. So it floated around the studio for many, many years. We think we time it at about 14 years. So it was very fun to at least get it this far for this. I'm not sure if I answered your question exactly.
Yeah. Could you talk about the relationship between the sculptures and the prints? You know, the 2D versus the 3D, and I see a really significantly strong relationship between them. And I just wanted to hear, how did you think about it?
Well, I think that while you can guess at a lot of my influences, I think all of my work really looks like my work. I think that in the 2D pieces, I'm dealing with illusion because I'm creating space, and with the three-dimensional pieces, I'm disrupting space. So for me, and I have to be really practical as a person who makes a three-dimensional thing. Whereas I feel like in dealing with the illusion, it's a very, very different kind of a mindset. It's been fun to use some of the much older two-dimensional pieces in reference to this exhibition and this grouping of work, and see some of the relationships and see how work from a long time ago. So these, in particular, these pieces which have to do with the fireworks and flowers. So I'm talking about, again, to the bursts, and I'm talking about how ephemeral flowers and fireworks and, just that kind of energy, which is, since I'm not doing film, since, you're having to imagine and sort of, I'm having to kind of provoke that action without being able to depict it exactly. So with the sculptures, there's a little more of that actual explosion, but of course not really. So I'm definitely challenging my viewers to complete those actions. But anyway, so these two particular pieces, which are from 2004 or 5 or something around those, I was learning how to print those gigantic rubber flowers that I had cast for the 10.5 by 32 foot piece that we had up at the New Orleans Museum of Art when Katrina hit. And it was very challenging. So I had cast these big rubber flowers. These are some of the smaller ones. Some of the other ones are, and they get substantially heavy, especially when you pile them up with ink and garnets and all kinds of crud, like like the kind of stuff I print with, and blasting sand, it's all in there, wax. But anyway, so those two pieces were about that time period. Then the particular one with the golden bullets on the right, because it was framed, I wasn't able to get to it. But this other one I continued to work on, and so it's also an encaustic piece.
I love the abstraction of all those ideas and how they're all there for you to enjoy, but it's not handed to you directly. And it's really, again, pretty inviting.
Well, I expect my viewers to be bright, and I expect them to be challenged, and and look at something and go, why are these flowers all different? Why are some of them all colored in and some of them aren't? Well, they exist in different time frames, different time periods. Like just even to depict flowers like in different courses of decay or whatever. It's kind of so obvious, and that again is more of an illustration. And I'm not really interested in illustrating, but more in fact of provoking the viewer to possibly make some connections to some of those sorts of things and figure out why they think something may be there. Yes.
Talking about the viewer and the connections, in that monoprint, I'm curious to know about the ink. Is there any significance in the rust color ink? And also, what is that is that meant to be scaffolding or a radio tower, or I'm being very direct.
I could hardly be more charmed that you asked me this question. Oh my God, I could hardly be more charmed. This particular piece is, I'm going to be a little long-winded because and I'm sorry I keep touching my microphone. The piece is called Precipice. It is in fact a monoprint that is mounted onto paper and then mounted onto canvas and onto a cradled panel, and then covered with encaustic. To first address your first question, the ink within the rusty colored thing is actually copper ink. It's some actual copper metal and some mica that has been colorized to look like copper colors and stuff like that. And there are a bunch of those different colors in different areas, even though it kind of reads as a similar color. There are actually a variety of different ones of those. And it's important to me to have those elements, that actual metal and those actual elements involved in the piece. That particular shape that you're referring to here, which you can also see because in a monoprint, sometimes you'll make the print and then move things, because most of my objects are not attached to the plate like a matrix. Most of my pieces, and it's part of why I call them monoprints, they're movable objects like the large rubber flowers, or in this case, this object, which used to be over here. If you can, very vaguely see within the, and then over here. So these two elements always came together. So this element would be here. And then they often had, in this time period, they often had these little amoeba, like, things that might be swimming in water. I don't always know everything about my work, just saying. Anyway, but I do know that this particular structure was very, very important in all of this work. Just like almost all of these pieces at this time period and still now have camwood in them. It just was part of the ritual of making them, and I'm not like particularly superstitious or anything like that, but I definitely have a lot of getting ready to work and different studio practice rituals and stuff, and it was and still is important to use the camwood a lot. This particular structure, which for me it was a ladder that you could climb up inside of from inside. Now I realize it also looks like a lot of other kinds of structures, and there are some structures out by the levee in New Orleans that are similar to that. But for me, exactly, right? But for me, it just became like this iconic thing that I just kept using, and it was in everything. It was sometimes painted on, sometimes I would make the object. The piece that the New Orleans Museum of Art has, which is called Echo, it has one of these, and it's one of its sister pieces up at the shop at Gravity Press if anybody wants to come over and visit. Wait till I clean up the studio a little bit though. But anyway.
Are bars sort of structural devices, so to speak, within the print, or do they, what do they, are they demarcations
I missed the first part.
Are the black bars within the piece, are those structural, or are they, what meaning might they have, if any?
Next question? No. They are, they demarcate part of where the precipice is. They're certainly structural as far as the composition, but they also demark. Exactly. They demark part of the precipice action, yeah, exactly. Because in every case we want, in anything, we want to be very aware of when we draw a line and the consequences of all that. So that's part of it, that these don't go all the way across and the one on the top does. So all of those, and definitely the consequences that are involved, and hence the precipice situation.
Thank you.
Situation.
Well done, I love that word that.
And the two larger shapes in relation to each other, a little tension there, or? Yeah, a lot of tension.
Yeah, and there's, and the mimicking, like the piece that's in the front window. I think a lot like the piece that's in the front window that has to do with that sameness, that, how when you meet somebody and you go, wow, we're so alike, like that wonderful thing of that sameness. The piece in the front window is talking about that. This is not that case at all. There is a lot of sameness, but there's tension, there's size, there's, they're possibly coming apart, it's hard to know.
They look so rigid, but there seems to be their movement or fluidity also.
I don't think they're,
positions can change,
yeah.
It's up in the air.
I don't think that they're terrifically cohesively made objects, particularly. I think they could be disintegrating somewhat. Could be, yeah, but kind of floating. One thing that's kind of wild about this particular piece that I'm particularly fond of is a lot of the pigments. Again, I make almost all of my own inks, and the blue is an interference sapphire color. And so, like, for example, if we shut off all the lights, but there was still a little sunlight outside, like even in this location, this piece just glows off the wall. It's just fascinating, and it's the same pigment. This is the blue, and this is a green version of that same interference pigment. And so, like, just walking across it, it changes the color and the look of the piece quite a bit.
Randy, would you want me to remove some of the lights so we could see?
Oh, I think we're totally good. I don't know that we need to do that. I think we can, like we can play around with that stuff. Good, yeah. I just because it's so, light is such a substance that we can play around with, and it changes the looks of everything. I mean, us too, but it's fascinating. And I love that the pieces bring in and hold light and then push it back out in a very interactive way. And I don't think we're always as conscious about that when thinking about our artwork. Like, for example, in this piece that's way over here. My poor videographer have to move and everything. This piece particularly over here that's called Flight Plan. I'm going to come all the way around here. So this piece called Flight Plan, which is, no, you're totally good. Totally, perfect. And plus you can, contribute with another great question. But so this particular piece is called Flight Plan, and it has to do with ball lightning or St. Elmo's fire. I don't know if any of you all have ever seen it before. I had not. And a gigantic ball of green lightning came out of the sky. It was as big as a Suburban. And it landed in the power lines in front of my studio in New Orleans and went down the power lines and then blew up. And truthfully, I'm not an illustrator. I don't normally depict a particular thing. But this was dramatic and scary and dangerous. And so anyway, that's what this particular piece is about. Then the reason that I'm bringing it up now again, thinking about pigments and light, for example, when you work with pastel, like a chalk pastel, what's wonderful about chalk pastels is that the way that it's applied, light is able to go all, except for the bottom surface, all of the surfaces of a pigment. So it just glows. Like Degas, like they just seem like they're alive, like he made them yesterday so often. And so that's what a lot of, you'll see some of these lines are like that, and they just dance. So again, another kind of way of using light and pigments and things. Was that English?
Yes.
So that is a series.
This is one piece.
Correct.
Yes, that is one piece. And there are actually two other versions. It's part of why I pulled this out right now. There are two other versions that are in the works right now in the shop. I've reworked these particular plates, and then I also have another group of 5 plates. And they're no longer in order. Like if you'll notice the little dotted line is actually in order. So they're no longer in order. The flight plan has changed dramatically. So that was kind of one of the things for sure about the new pieces. And I'm also just loving those yellow colors with the silver and stuff. So that's, those are underway in the shop. Good. You guys are awesome. Thank you so very much. Does anybody have any other questions, or are we good? Good. Thank you very much. Great. Thanks, Chris.
I'd like to ask you about the dress.
Yes, it's fun to have, I did not. It's fun to have nice clothes to wear to an opening that don't have any ink on them at all. Yeah, I know, and I've got microphones and all kinds of stuff in my pockets. Yeah, it's very comfortable, very good. Good. Thanks, Phil.
I was just going to ask, with the light absorbing words, is that something that you knew you wanted to include it in the piece, or is it something by happenstance that ended up being used in that?
Well, I got provoked because people, when I was first making these pieces, which I started right after Katrina, and the first exhibit was at the Kola Gallery here locally, and people started telling me that they looked like snake skins, or kind of a little bit more eviscerated. They looked a little too dead, and so I didn't like that idea at all. Like, I'm fine with that as one component, but I felt like my viewer was stopped with that particular interpretation. So then I started adding the pink, kind of like the color of my dog's gums, to them to give them a little bit more life, and then adding other materials like coloring the vellum. Like these were some of the first. This one has a little bit of a little teeny bit of color in there. So this is one of the older of the sculptures that we have available here. And so I was very, very careful at first because I didn't want to disrupt all of what I did like about the purity of the color and all that. So, but now I'm kind of over that, and it seems, and I'm also with the smaller ones. I'm starting to adventure into a lot of other colors and things. Like one of the cool things about these little bitty pieces is that people are bringing me their relatives, like old jewelry. Like most of us women have some sort of weird grandmother pearls, or some great aunt somebody or other that you never would know who they are particularly, and there'll be these beautiful like pearls or stones or whatever. And so it's been really fun that people have been bringing those and commissioning me to make these little bursts. And like, so we have these two on the pedestals, but they also have a little hook dude on the back, so you can manipulate the stainless steel in the back, and you can hang them on the wall. You can also like wear them and put them in your hair. And I mean, there's of course the damage potential is escalates, I'm sure, depending on how wild your evening is. But anyway, they can be, and so that's been a kind of fun evolution of them and helping to evolve the color, because they're like, I have a peridot, which is a green one coming, and also some lapis ones, so some blue ones. So it's been fun to continue with them, but still keeping the ficus and all the other colors. But yeah, those have been good. Yes.
A number of these forms seem to me very of flight, but they're also prickly. They're also defensive. They also have sharpness. Stay away.
Yes.
In your mind, can you see it?
I do, absolutely. That's absolutely. It's why I hung that one high, so nobody, you'd have to have a B-52 hairdo to get yourself involved with that guy. But yes, I definitely think that there's, and truthfully, even my mother, the piece about my mother Ruth, I believe that it's both strong, but it's also, I think, a little fierce for sure, and a little bit scary. I definitely think that almost everything has a lot of different elements to it, and I think a lot of beauty is really scary too. I like that duality and kind of encourage it.
So you can read a bit into the artist's psyche by looking at what she uses a little bit.
Can we have that in writing? I think that absolutely. I think that life is really great and wonderful and beautiful and dangerous, and our demise is imminent from the day we take our first breath, and we have to be really careful to spend our time wisely and enjoy it, and encourage as much wonder and beauty and connection with others. I mean, truthfully, I don't have English. I don't know how to say any of the things that I say with my work. I have no English for that. It's it's trying to give English to these. It's nearly a disservice.
Jane Goodall said the same thing this morning on NPR.
Well, and I mean, I could quote Eva Hess too, on a lot of, along these lines. What does it do? I mean, it's fascinating, and ideally provocative and fun and entertaining.
It just is.
Exactly, and you know, yeah. And I love that how I thought of this piece of, you know, when I made it years ago, and how I think of it now, or in particular the piece on the other side of this that's from 1998, the older piece in the show, like how I think about that now, it's very different. It still seems, to me it seems an excessively joyous piece still, but it's also that, I mean, love is a lot. I mean, it's a lot. You're vulnerable and it's scary. So I think of all the, a lot of things have many sides. The pieces that are up, the little Sterling Hard series, of which there are 375 of them to date, exactly. And they really end up in some great collections. I guess we've sold about a little more than half of the ones that we have up here. And they have always done just really well. And they are just, you know, they're about heart knots and heart games and real love and partnership and growing roots and heart games and, you know, trepidation and scary stuff. And they're about, I feel like I'm, you know, experimenting with a lot of different things along those lines. Was that English? Thank you all so much. You're good. Thanks, Bill.
Thank you all for coming. And I would like to say just my reaction to the last bit right there is that while, you know, the finger pointing at the moon is not the moon, your talk today was very enlightening and revealing and helpful in understanding your work. So thank you very much. And as Real Life Gallery, I thank you all for coming. And there are refreshments out in the other gallery, and enjoy yourself.
Well, and thank Bill for this incredible venue. Thank you so much for inviting me.